Hey everyone, thank you for joining in. We have with us Shahar Mayer, and the title for this talk is The Data Interviews Behind the Scenes Insights and Tips. A little bit about Shahar. Shahar is a seasoned data executive with over 20 years of experience in leading data teams across global organizations. He excels in transforming organizations and products by helping them find a path to growth using their data. Shahar has proven track record of building and leading high-performing data and analytics teams in both startups and large companies like PayPal and Meta. At Meta, Shahar served as the Director of Data Engineering for Trust and Safety and London Data Engineering Site Lead. Shahar is now a data advisor, supporting companies and individuals in their data journey. Outside of work, Shahar enjoys quality time with his family, cooking, and flying airplanes and helicopters. Welcome, all of you, and I'll give it over to Shahar for his wonderful talk. Thank you, Shahar.
Thank you so much, Rayashi. I really appreciate the lovely introduction, and thanks again. Obviously Ben and Shinran and the rest of the team. There are a lot of people who organized this conference. These conferences don't organize themselves. It takes a lot of work and effort from a lot of people. So I do very much appreciate it, and I do appreciate, the opportunity to speak here today. Um, just to give you some background, when I was preparing for this session, I basically asked Shinran and Benjamin what do they think will be useful. And the idea of data interviews came up. I think that data interviews is something that everybody has, probably everybody in this room had to go through at least a few times in their career, and will have to go through more. People make a lot of assumptions about interviews, what they are, how do they work, and of course you got the perspective of being a candidate in data interviews, but we thought that it will be interesting to share the perspective of what's really happening behind the scenes, and that was the genesis of this talk. So I tried to think about what will be useful, and I basically break it down. I'll just give a quick introduction about myself, and I'll break it down into three stages: before the interview, during the interview, and after the interview, and just to give some thoughts about each one of these stages, what happens in each one of them, some best practices and ideas. And then in the end, we'll do live profile reviews. And I posted on LinkedIn, I asked for volunteers, and several people signed up, and they requested, they offered that their profile will be reviewed. So we're going to look at some profiles today. I'll give some live feedback to these individuals, but with the idea that a lot of this feedback is, first of all, applicable to everybody else in the room. So it's nice idea, to try and get the essence of what I'm saying and try to see how that applies to your own profile. And secondly, I think that it will give you. I'll try to talk through my thinking process and how do I read these profiles, so it will give you a glimpse of how hiring managers would be looking at your profiles and what do they look for and what they're seeing. So with that in mind, let's just jump straight to it. So, as I said, my name is Shahar. I've been in data and leadership for the past 20 years. I've worked in startups, I've worked in bigger companies such as PayPal and Meta. I've always been in data and analytics leadership roles throughout my entire career. At Meta, as Shriyashi said, I was the London data engineering site lead. I've grown this function from 4 data engineers when I started to more than 200 at the peak. I managed the data for a $7 billion business in ads and business platform. And in my last role, I was the director of trust and safety problems for Facebook, Instagram, and Messenger. I did that I was at Meta for 6.5 years, and I left Meta last year to become a data advisor. I thought that I've learned a lot throughout my career. I have my own playbook. I've seen a lot of different ways of doing things, and I thought that I can achieve greater impact by not being in one company every time, but actually trying to work with across multiple companies and replicate some of these ideas and some of the things that I do. So as an advisor, I help companies succeed with their data. I advise to data startups. I work with several startups as an advisor, and I do some mentoring for a few individuals that have limited number of slots, and I help them unblock their career. So yeah, so that's about me. Let's now talk about the interviews. So what is an interview actually? Before we start, I think that the best way for me to think about an interview is a prediction exercise. Okay. And if we look at uh, all the people in the world, let's assume that these are all the people in the world, there are some people who are relevant for the job that we have open. Let's say that I have a data engineering job in my team right now that's open, and I'm looking for a specific type of expertise. It can be in terms of skills, it can be in terms of experience in different domains, it can be in terms of years of experience, it can be in terms of location, and things like that. So there are some people who are relevant for this search, some people who are not relevant for the search. Most people would probably be irrelevant for the search. And then, of course, there are people who are actively looking and people who are not actively looking, not open um, to moving and changing roles. And there's you, right? And you're just part of a very large number of people. This is, of course, a conceptual design, but the idea is that you're one of uh, dozens of thousands, so to speak. And basically the recruiters have a system in place where they try to sift through all the profiles and try to find the candidate that would be best fit for that job. Right now, we don't actually know who is going to be the best fit, right? So what we try to do is make a prediction. Recruiters and sourcers, the way they make these predictions is based on the profile, right? They look at the CV, they look at your LinkedIn profile, they look at all the information that's available to them, and they try to find signals in that will tell them, yes, this person is likely to be successful in that role. And the signals recruiters would be looking for would be very crude signals, I would say, right? So if they're looking for a data engineer, if they see that you have experience in building ETL processes and data warehousing, they think, okay, this person is likely to be a good fit for the role. When hiring managers interview the candidates, it's again a prediction exercise, but in this case what they do is they give you a set of exercises, a set of questions, and they look for signals that will tell them this person is going to be a good fit for that role. Now, some hiring managers, especially inexperienced hiring managers, will over index on technical skills, right? And they will look for technical skills and signals that this person is very technically sound and proficient, while other more experienced interviewers usually will look for other skills like collaboration, communication, learning abilities is really, really important. Personally, for me, for example, as an interviewer, one of the things I like doing is to try and find a concept that you may not know, explain that to you, and see if you can use information you've just learned to solve a question that I'm trying to see where the boundaries are of your learning abilities. Um, I look at when I give people hints in an interview. It's okay when people make mistakes. When when in our day job, right? When we work, we make a lot of mistakes. So it's perfectly fine if somebody makes mistakes. The question is, are they able to do they validate the work? Do they have this kind of self-critical thinking? Are they able to change direction if they see that they're doing something that's not working, or do they keep going in the same direction even though it's not working for them? So these are the signals I would personally be looking for as an interviewer, more than technical skills, because honestly I think that I know how to teach somebody SQL and Python. I'm not sure I know how to teach somebody to be diligent and to do very methodical work. But as I said, it's a prediction exercise, right? And for every job, there are tens of thousands of relevant candidates out there somewhere in the world. There's a system in place to try and help do this matching, and the way the system works is partially by push, where candidates basically apply to roles, partially by pull, where these recruiters and sources will go out there, look and talk to people who are not actively looking for change, but they might be relevant for the role, and see if they can get them interested. And there's a lot going on to eventually bring a very small number of people who are probably the most relevant to an interview, and then make a decision which one is going to be the best fit. um, yeah, so competition is fierce. That's the one thing, of course, everyone who's job seeking knows that. But I think that it's really important, because if you understand that there is a system in place that stands between you and your dream job, and there's a very fierce competition, you want to make sure that the way that you present yourself, the way you tell your story, the way you present your narrative is as such that you're increasing your chances of being one of the people who will be considered and eventually get the job. So yeah, as I said, there's you have your own career goals, you have your ambitions, you have your past experiences that you're building on, which is where you've grown, what you've learned, where you've learned, which schools, which universities, the places you've worked in, and your past experience, any certifications you've got. So these are the things that will help you eventually get the job, right? And obviously you have your network, the people you're connected with, and your relationships. And I think that you're basically, what you want to do is to tell a story, take these components that you have in your life and try to use them in a way that tells the story or sends the signals to recruiters, to managers, that you're the best person for this job. And that's essentially the goal of what you're trying to do as a job seeker. So I've worked a lot with recruiters over the years, and I think that it's really, really important to understand how do recruiters work, how do hiring managers work, and to understand where they come from in this entire situation. Because I think that if you don't understand, and if you fail to see this from their point of view, it will be very difficult sometimes to understand why certain things happen, or how to increase your chances and likelihood of succeed. So let's talk about recruiters first, right? Recruiters are great people. Most of them, or all of the recruiters I got to work with, were just really great people, honestly. But they have a very limited amount of time, and usually they're squeezed to hit very high, recruiting goals and targets. So they really, really don't have a lot of time to dwell on each and every role. It's kind of like a pipeline where they have roles, and they need to move as many people as they can through these roles in the least amount of time. So they don't have a lot of capacity. And a lot of the work that they do is manual, in the sense that they have to read profiles, they need to have phone calls with candidates, they need to prepare them to interviews. So a lot of that is manual and repetitive work that takes a lot of time. And unfortunately, not all of that is automated. So they're really, really squeezed. And the amount of attention your profile is going to get from a recruiter is going to be very limited. Okay. Now, talking about hiring managers, they're also very busy. I mean, if I'm a data engineering director in Meta, I have my day job, I have an organization of 60, 70 people, whatever, globally. There's crisis all the time, there are people issues, there's a lot of all the product work that I need to attend, there's loads of meetings. And on top of all of that, if that's not enough, I need to hire and grow my team. So again, hiring and recruiting is just a very small part of my job, of my day job. It's not something that I do all the time. It's not something I have the luxury to spend a lot of time on. And I think that that's the number one thing any job seeker needs to understand, like the amount of attention that you're going to be able to get from the people who make the decision about whether you are the right or the wrong person for the job is extremely limited. Okay. When hiring managers or recruiters spend time looking at a profile, they usually spend less than a minute looking at a profile, less than a minute, or even sometimes less than 20 seconds, right? So they will scroll through it very quickly. If you're sending a CV and you're probably working on your CV for hours and hours and trying to perfect that, eventually somebody will look at that for 10, 15, 20 seconds, make a decision whether you're, good potential candidate or not, and move on. And this is super critical, because what that means is, if you don't present yourself correctly, and if you don't help them get the signals that they need very quickly, if there's the signal to noise ratio is too skewed to one side, you're going to lose up on too many opportunities, just because people struggle to understand who you are, what you do, why are you a good fit for this job. So I think that whenever you work on your profile or your CV, you have to take into account the fact that people will barely spend any time looking at it, and you have to make it super optimized for what you want to achieve, right? So you have your goals. There's all the open roles, and you need to optimize that in such a way that it matches very well. So again, when people read your profile, what they do is they try to aggregate, they try to summarize that in their mind in one sentence, right? So if I look at somebody's CV, I might read it. I spend 20, 30 seconds and I'll say, okay, this is a data engineering graduate, no experience, looking for a job. That's a summary. Or this is someone who's been a project manager 8 years, transitioned into analytics 2 years ago. That's my summary of that CV, right? That's how I'll remember it. That's the sort of narrative that I'm getting out of this CV. Another example, I look at a CV or a LinkedIn profile and I say, okay, this is a data engineer with 10 years of experience, but they never stay in a job for more than 1.5 years. That's another thing that might come up. Or a data engineering manager who recently transitioned back to IC. I don't know why, but that's what I'm seeing in front of me. And I need to make a decision, is that a good fit for me or not? So the reason I say that is because you need to decide up front what you want your narrative to be. What is the one-liner story you want to tell recruiters, you want to tell candidates, and you need to build your profile in a way that it tells exactly that story and nothing else, right? So if you want to be remembered as a badass data engineer dealing with performance problems, build it in that way. If you want to build your profile in a way that people will think of you as an up and coming data engineering manager, you don't have a lot of experience as an IC, transition to manager, good trajectory, build it that way. So decide up front on your narrative and build your entire profile, your entire resume in a way that basically tells that story and nothing else. And if you can do that, you will increase the likelihood of finding the jobs that you want. If you don't do that, you leave it to chance, and people will make up whatever they make up out of your CV. You will have no control over that because you just throw a lot of details at them. So I want to talk about LinkedIn today because LinkedIn is a public version of your CV. It's searchable. I can go in the LinkedIn search bar and start typing a bunch of search criteria, and I'll find immediately all the profiles that match this criteria, even people who haven't applied for the role. So if we go back to this diagram, LinkedIn will give me all the relevant people, regardless of whether they're looking or not. So LinkedIn is a great tool from that perspective. This is a great way for recruiters to find you, to find your profile and to interact with it. And your activities basically bubble through your network. So whatever you do on LinkedIn is visible to your network, which is a great way to increase visibility. Your CV, for that matter, is a document that doesn't have that level of visibility. And I think because of that, I'm going to dwell on LinkedIn, but a lot of these ideas are probably relevant for CV. I will also say I know that today many companies use AI to to filter the CVs that they get of people who apply, right? And I know that there are a lot of services and a lot of tips and tricks for how to optimize that. I'm not going to talk about any of that because I do think if you do a good job with your LinkedIn, people might find you rather than you having to apply. That's how it's always worked for me. So that's why I'm going to spend more time on LinkedIn. But the same concepts apply to your CV as well. So let's talk about your LinkedIn profile. And I think all of you probably have a LinkedIn profile. Probably all of you know what I'm going to say now. But for me, these are the most visible parts of your profile and most interesting for me as a hiring manager, and especially in that order, right? So this is what I would look at in that sort of order. And I think these are some of the things you want to optimize. So let's go over them one by one. Um, I'll start with your profile photo first. So when it comes to profile photo, use a good photo of yourself and try to not look like a creep. Try to make your face visible, make a nice authentic face. You can smile, you can look more formal, you can look straight, sideways, whatever you want, but try to use a good photo. Some people don't have a profile photo. I personally think it's not a good idea, because one of the things that make your profile more personable and more humane, if you want, is this profile photo, right? It makes it look like there's a real human behind this profile. So it's a great opportunity to you know to showcase yourself and to look more accessible. So I would definitely get a good photo. There's some AI services that enhance profile photos. I'll show an example of that. I personally, I'm not a big fan, but there are some good services out there that can make it look good. And I think that personally, you can achieve with a good smartphone camera and the right lighting and background, you can probably achieve a very good result, just like that. So, talking about names, I would say my recommendation: use your full name and avoid things like superlative titles, certifications, past companies, things like that. I see too many people who clutter their name, even sometimes emojis. Like some people use emojis in their name. There's something cute about it, but I think these things always make it super weird when you come and try to tag people on posts, when you comment. It looks weird, right? And I'm just picking up on this guy just because he used all the superlatives and titles that he could find. But I think it just makes it look really awkward. Sure, if you have a doctor or your professor, you can put it in your profile if you want to, but I would try to keep it short. Otherwise, it just looks weird. In terms of headline is super important, and it's one of the most visible parts of your profile. So this is just, I randomly opened my LinkedIn. I don't even know who this guy is, but this is one of the first posts that came on my feed. And you can see that the headline is everywhere. The headline is on your feed, it's in your profile, it's in search results. So if I go and search for somebody, I'm going to see their headline. So it's basically everywhere. And this is a summary, and this is your opportunity to tell your story the way you want it to be told. Now, the most important thing for me to say about headline, and people don't realize that, is that the headline only shows in full when you look at the profile. Everywhere else, it's cropped. And so the first about 50 characters, I think 50 or 48, and there are differences between web and mobile, but these are the ones that are going to be visible. So you can see that this guy has a fairly long headline. You can see that there's a shorter version of that in search results, and then um, in the feed itself, you only see the first 50 characters. So if you want to optimize something, make sure that the most important parts of your story and the things that you want to say that are most crucial part of who you are in the beginning. Okay, and I'll show examples for that later. So cover photos, it's another real estate where you can tell your story in your own word. You don't have to. Okay, there's no need to overdo it, but just remember that it's possible. It's another real estate that you have. It's graphical, it's very visible, it's the top of the page. People are always going to see it. So if you have something to say, that's another place you can say that. um, you can design a very good um, cover photo using Canva. So Canva is an online design tool. It's very easy to. Oh, um, I think there's a microphone on. So you can design using Canva. You can find yourself a color palette. You can decide on your one-line tagline and just make it nice using Canva and play around with it. Now, a tip I'll give here is look at other people's and try to borrow great ideas and try to get inspiration. And I'll go further and say not just people who work in data, but go look at how designers build their profiles, because designers are, and everyone who's doing something creative, they have the best ideas, and that's their job. So really just go and get as much inspiration from them as you can. I will say, if you don't want to create like a fancy uh, kind of cover photo, that's perfectly fine. You can still use this real estate to show something nice like this guy did. I like that. I think it's smart. It looks nice, good colors. It matches the colors of the photo, so it looks more professional than just leaving it blank. So I want to give some examples, and I just randomly picked up a few profiles that seemed interesting, took some screenshots of things that we can talk about. So this is one example. Trey, she posted some time ago. She said that she used one of these AI services to enhance the profile photo, and I think it looks great. Honestly, I think she took some of her photos and it generated something based on that. I don't know how different that is from the authentic photos that she had, but it looks great. So this is an example that I wanted to share, and also I think the cover photo is interesting. Good, the headline. She's leading with the most important thing. So she basically says consulting data engineer, women in data. So that's basically, if you're going to see the first 50 characters, the most important information is there. Another interesting profile. I don't know who this person is. Just randomly came up on my profile. I think this is something I see a lot. The cartoon type photos. It's okay. It looks a little bit less professional, if you ask me, but it's perfectly fine. And it also depends on the kind of vibe and look and feel that you want to give. I think um, if you're an entry level engineer, perfectly fine, go with it. If you're a more senior manager or something like that, or more a senior engineer, maybe go with a nice photo instead. The cover photo here is weird. I think this guy was part of something big, a big iceberg community. He wanted to show that, but I think when I see that profile, I'm like, who are these people and what are they doing here? So for me, this is cluttered, right? Also, look at the headline. He's leading with U.S. Marine, so it's clear that he's developer, open source advocate. It will be cut somewhere around here, so all of that is not going to be visible on feed and probably on searches. Um, and by the way, the name, some people do that. If you have a nickname, it's okay. I think it's cluttered. If you want to keep it professional, don't do that. If you want to look like cool and you don't mind a little bit of that, then that's okay. Um, this is an example of a profile where the headline is basically just listing a bunch of technologies. I'm not looking for people who know technologies. I'm looking for data engineers, right? And in the search, if I search and I see AWS, PySpark, SQL, Databricks, okay, I understand it's a data engineer, but I think it's not really telling the story the way you want it to be told. Dawn Chu, she's great. She's got a great profile. Follow her. She's awesome. She's on the data science side. I really really liked her profile picture. It's nice. It's authentic. A nice smile. And I think that she did something really smart with the colors. How it basically blends nicely with the cover photo. So the design is very clever. An interesting idea to steal. Then this guy, again, very nice play with the colors. He's a designer, so obviously you can expect something like that. But here you've got the black and white play, and you've got the black and white. Sorry, the yellow and black here, yellow and black here. So there's a very nice play with the colors, very clean, very nice. Abby, she's again a brand designer, educator. I love her profile. Simple, clean, nice photo, smiling, just a designer, helping designers, very clear message. You know exactly what to expect out of this person, right? Just this, without looking at the rest of the profile, I kind of have an idea of who she is and what she does. And if I go back to the one-liner summary of what she is, I get that she's a designer helping designers. She's an educator. It's all very, very clear. Um, I think that's my last one. Super, super clever the way he did that. And basically, the profile picture, he kind of cut the circle a little bit, make it look like it's 3D. And he says, stand out like this. Again, this is a designer kind of thinking. Very clever. And you can see that this is a, work of an artist. By the way, you can probably go on Fiverr and find people who can design these cover photos for you if you have something to say and you don't have the design skills. Just get somebody to do it for like a fiver or a tenner, and that's it. And look at the headline, by the way. UX storyteller, I design homepages that delight your audience. Super clear. You don't need anything else than that. It's already telling you all the story that you need to know. And then other examples. This one had no cover photo, unclear headline. I have no idea what to make out of it, who this person is. Another one with no cover photo, unclear headline. I'm trying to show you both ways. This person says working on staff, been to Stanford. It's very hard to understand what to make out of this profile. This one just says loading. Okay. Nice cover photo, but this is weird. I'm not just a guy, but I'm the guy. Again, I don't think that's super professional. I like the cover photo. It's nice, useful, but this is weird. So that's it about profiles and cover profiles. But that's like the most visible graphical thing in your LinkedIn profile. That's a big opportunity to show up, to showcase with the headline. That's already telling interesting, big part of the story and who you are. Let's talk about the about section. So that's one of the very top sections in your profile. And this is your opportunity to say in just a few sentences, maybe a couple of paragraphs, basically who you are, what are you looking for, and why should I hire you? Okay. So this is prime real estate, very, very much at the top. A good use of that space is basically to tell a brief story that helps people understand who you are and what to expect of you. Bad use of this space is shopping list of programming languages, tools that you use, technologies that you know. I mean, there's plenty of room for that. Later at the LinkedIn profile, you really don't want to spend too much time on that, and you don't want to confuse people, because if somebody is going to read the about section and not everybody actually reads that, that's your opportunity to tell them the story the way you want it to be told. So don't miss out on that opportunity. Experience. So for me as a hiring manager, that's like one of the first places I'll go to. I open the profile, all of these things are visible, but I'll quickly jump to the experience to sort of work out what kind of profile am I looking at, who is this person, what do they do. So this is for me the most important section in the LinkedIn profile. And this is really where you want to spend time making sure that you're telling your story correctly. Now, every job in your experience has a title, company description, and skills. So we can break it down. The job titles are super important. Okay. Now, there are some companies out there that just make up titles that nobody understands, right? Like data support lead. I have no idea what the data support lead is. If your company made up a weird title for you, they call you a data support lead, but you want to do data operations kind of role, call yourself data operations. I think that's a much better description, and that tells the story and that helps people understand. I've seen the weirdest jobs on LinkedIn, and I look at the skills and I'm trying to figure out, okay, from the description, what kind of role is it? But it's very, very difficult. So make it easy for the person reading your profile by telling them exactly what you think you want them to know. The other thing is you can use the titles to show progression in your career and to tell the story. So, think about the sequence of the titles. And if you had levels in your titles, like, senior engineer, principal engineer, staff engineer, things like that, feel free to add them because, when you look at the experience, it kind of shows the progression and the trajectory. Um, and if you work in a specific team or you have specific domain expertise, consider adding it to the title, right? Now, there's a question here how you want to position yourself. Do you want to position yourself as a data engineer, or do you have experience and expertise in marketing and sales? So in that case, I would position myself as data engineer, sales and marketing, right? And show that I'm focused on that area. But that tells people that I have that kind of domain expertise. The description, this is what a lot of people get wrong. Be brief. One paragraph is usually enough, 5 bullet points, 6 bullet points. You don't need to tell your entire life story for each and every job. Make sure that you do have a description for the later jobs that you've worked on and if you had a very long career, it's perfectly fine for your past jobs to keep it shorter, even like a one liner, because if it's just adding noise and this is not what you want to do, especially if you change roles, you started as a project manager, you move to analytics, don't spend too much time describing the project management if that was 8 or 9 years ago. Focus on creating a profile that looks like an analytics profile. That will be much more clearer. So good use of that space. Focus on what you worked on and focus on achievements. Be super clear and super specific about this is what I did, this is what I achieved, and try to quantify that if you can. A bad use of that space is basically just listing out again tools and technologies, languages that you've used, and things you've worked on. I think that's not a very good use of that space. It's confusing, it's adding a lot of noise. People don't understand who you are and what you do. Skills, you can add skills to each and every job. So I think up to 5 skills, maybe they increase the limit, I don't know. The skills make your profile more searchable. So this is like the keywords you can add, and then people will basically would be able to search by these skills. So this is where you can add and list the tools and technologies if you want to, and you don't have to repeat that. So you don't have to say ETL in each and every one of those jobs, right? It's enough to say it once or twice. People know you're a data engineer. It will pop up if they search for ETL because it's in your skills. So use that to kind of show progression and show that you did different things in different jobs. I think that's more interesting. And I think the last thing I'll talk about is endorsements. Endorsements is a way for you to get recognitions or recommendations from people who know you, and it's a great way to enhance your profile, especially if it's people high visibility, high profile, your managers, your skips, people you've worked with, like product managers. It helps build a lot of credibility, and it's just available. So of course, if you just send your CV, the company might ask for references, but if you have 10, 15 recommendations on your profile page, then it looks very credible. It looks like you know what you're doing. So you can proactively reach out to people and ask for these kind of endorsements. My suggestion is be very specific about what you want them to write about, just so that it fits your narrative and they don't talk about something random that creates extra noise. Thank them in advance. It's super important. People take time to do that. And of course, offer to reciprocate, offer to write a recommendation for them as well if they want to. So this is an example for how I would do that. If I were Bob and I wanted a recommendation from my PM, Alice, say, hi, Alice, I really enjoyed working with you at this random company. I'm now building my profile. It would mean a lot to me if you would be willing to write me an endorsement on LinkedIn. Of course, I'm happy to reciprocate if that helps you too. Thank you so much, Bob. Alice would then respond and say, with pleasure, I enjoyed working with you too. Please send me a request. So you go on your LinkedIn profile, scroll down to the recommendation section, ask for recommendation, These, by the way, these are some of my recommendations. So you see it's visible, it's great, and you can see what's the relationship. So you ask for recommendation, you type in the person's name, whoever you want to ask a recommendation from, and then this is where I said, make sure that it fits the narrative. I would um, define our relationship, and I would say, "Hi, Shinran, as request," or "Hi, Alice, as discussed. I would appreciate your recommendation. You may consider writing about my dashboarding skills, my collaboration skills, ability to work with business stakeholders." So this is where again I'm trying to fit that into the narrative that I want to tell. If the narrative is amazing dashboard designer, really good with stakeholders, and the last thing is networking. Networking, basically the best way to find a job is not to look for one, but just to keep networking all the time, and then these jobs will find you. So let's just look at two different scenarios, right? And try to think about the um, the likelihood of getting hired in both scenarios. So scenario one, you apply to a job, you find your dream job, you apply. There's 7,239 applications, and they also have AI systems that filter the CVs. Eventually, the recruiters will review 20 to 30 CVs or 20 to 30 candidate profiles that were filtered out as the most likely ones or the most suitable ones. Then eventually, five will be invited to an interview and one will be hired. Right. So these are sort of roughly the numbers. So what's your propensity of getting the job here comparing to you go to a tech meetup. Um, Alice is giving a presentation about data engineering at Netflix. You go and talk to her after the presentation, and you start building a good relationship. You had a nice click. You ask if you can have a call with her sometime, in the next few weeks to get some career advice. To which she agrees because she is a very nice person. You have the call and you ask for mentorship. Again, she agrees because she's a great person. And 6 months later, a job opens in her team and she tells you about it and recommends that you apply. Looking at these two scenarios, where do you think you have better chances of actually getting the job? So networking is one of the most powerful tools that you have to actually engage with hiring managers, with recruiters, get to know them, get to know what they care about before they actually interview you, build relationships that can help in the future. So the advice here is just go to meetups, be active in the community, go to events. Whenever you go to a presentation, message the person, say, "Oh, I really enjoyed that presentation. Thank you." Be proactive, start building these relationships. You can follow if they're active on LinkedIn or YouTube or whatever, follow them, engage with their content. So, react to their posts, comment, repost their post. It helps, getting your name recognition and getting you noticed. And super important, if you're going to comment, make it intelligent. Don't just do these kind of chat GPT generated comments because or just say interested or something like that, because these things actually make it look worse. But if you make intelligent comments or just genuine, nice comments about their content, I think people always appreciate that. Reach out, ask to meet, say, "Hey, I really enjoyed your presentation. Would you be willing to meet next week sometime?" Whatever. But when you reach out, don't just say, "Hi, it's been a while since we connected. Hey, can we chat?" Whatever. Um, Try to reach out with a specific hook, like, "Oh, I really liked your post from last week about the future of big scale systems at Netflix. I would really love to chat and learn more if you're open to it." I think this is a much warmer type of approach, and people will be more receptive to that than just, "Hey, let's talk," because of course everybody is busy. Let's talk about the interview itself then. So let's say that your profile has been um, selected and you get to the interview phase. The most important thing is when you tell your story, when you talk about your work, there's something very common that I see when I ask people, "Okay, tell me what you do." and they say I build pipelines in Scala, in Python, whatever, they start listing out technologies instead of telling me what is it that they do. Okay. And I actually spoke about it with Shinran in an event last week. Check out my profile. We had a great discussion about that. The way you talk about your work matters. It matters a lot. You need to tell your story. You need to explain what you build, why did you build it, what was achieved as a result. And people just say I use Fivetran, I use Snowflake. That's not impressive. People say I optimized my company's marketing spend by 15% because I built an exploration dashboard and we managed to find a few areas where we were basically not optimized. Super impressive. Okay. So just talk about your work in the right way. I'm not going to dwell on that too much because we don't have time, but this is super important. And listen to the talk with Shinran because it came up there. Um, Also, specifically on the technical interviews, what I'll say is there's some very common mistakes that people make, and there are ways to mitigate that. So, coding before you understand the question, uh, the easiest way to mitigate that is to ask clarifying questions. What do we mean by active customer? What do you mean by total sales? Wait, what happens if there's a refund? Should I still count it as a sale? Understand the question first. um, Candidates who think they're done when they're not. So just ask: is that what you wanted? Does that answer the question, or am I missing anything? Make it a dialogue, right? It's super important. When you make assumptions on the data, uh, just validate them. It's perfectly okay to say, am I right in thinking that every sale transaction will have at least one product? Or you can actually check. You can just query the table and check if that's really true. You can tell the interviewer that you're doing that. It's perfectly fine. Not validating your assumptions. uh, just validate all your assumptions, basically. Not checking for mistakes. That's really annoying when I interview somebody and they code and they think they're done, and I see that they made a few mistakes and they're not even checking and double checking themselves. So just say, okay, I think I'm done. Let me just double check myself again one more time. Tell them you're doing it. It's perfectly fine. It even shows some strengths. And the last thing I'll say is, on technical interviews especially, your interviewer is giving you a lot of hints throughout the interview, and when somebody is not picking up on those hints, that's really, really disappointing. So just listen to what the interviewer is telling you. If they're saying something or they're asking a question, it's usually trying to tell you something in a very subtle way, and they're trying to help you not go in that direction but actually see that there's an easier path. So try to listen and try to pick up on those things, because that's showing that you're able to change direction to learn, which is a very, very important thing, especially in technical interviews. That was brief, but I just wanted to say a few things about that. And then after the interview, that's going to be even shorter. Basically, forget about it. You completed the interview. You've done your best. I know it's really, really hard to forget about it, but you've done your best. Now it's out of your hands. Don't dwell on it too much. Go relax somewhere, have a drink, meet some friends. Make sure you have plans for after the interview. Just move on mentally in your mind. Don't make excuses. Like, that's the worst, when somebody is told they failed the interview, and then they start saying, oh no, but I didn't, I forgot something. It doesn't matter, right? It's over. um, Always be very polite, courteous. Thank your recruiters and your interviewers for their time, regardless of the outcome. Even if the outcome is not the one you were all hoping for, play the long term game, because even if it doesn't work out right now with this company or with these people, you don't want to burn your bridges, right? You may want to reapply to this company again in 6 months, or you may want to reapply to a new job, and guess what? The same people have now moved to a different company. Now they're the interviewers there, so you want them to remember, to have a positive memory of you. And the last thing, if you got the job, um, and you liked your experience, again, thank your recruiters, thanks to your interviewers. They've taken a lot of time to do that on top of their day job. So please go thank them, say, oh, thank you so much for the great experience. And even more important, on your first week when you join the company, reach out to them again, say, hey, can we meet up for coffee? They know who you are. They liked you. They wanted you to work in this company. They approved of you. So you already have a sponsors in the company. Go meet with them, talk to them. That's great. Um, cool. So we have 8 minutes left. Not a lot of time. Can everybody still see my screen? Let me just check. Okay, so I have a few people who applied, as I said, for this feedback. So first of all, I'll say thank you so much for doing this and for applying and for putting yourself out there. I'll be going quickly. I'm not criticizing. I'm just giving some feedback, trying to help, and hopefully it's going to be useful not only for you but to others as well. So let's start with Muhammad again. Thanks, Muhammad, for stepping up and suggesting to use your profile. Couple of things I'll say looking at your profile. So first of all, no cover photo. As we said, you can use that real estate better. Profile picture is a little bit dark. I'll say it's a nuance. It's an okay photo, but you can adjust that a little bit with any photo editing. Make yourself a little bit more visible because the light is behind you. I think it's going to make it look more professional. So let's talk about your headline. So it says data analyst, but then it says process and material engineer. So I didn't really get that. I still don't know if, because I'm going to read through the rest of the profile. But if you're looking for a job as a data analyst, you might as well. I know maybe this is your past experience or this is what you've learned. You might as well drop that just for clarity and to say I'm a data analyst, right? And that's how you want to be remembered. So the about section is very dense. Just from looking at that, I read through it earlier, but it's very dense. So I would structure it, add some line breaks a little bit, just so it doesn't look like very dense one paragraph. And you're basically sort of repeating everything you said before, or like everything you said in your experience, which we'll look at in a second. But try to say basically again who you are, what you do, and why should they hire you for the data analyst job. Like, why are you the perfect candidate for any data analyst job? I think that will be better. So I see that you're sort of active on LinkedIn. You posted a couple of things, so that's nice. Jumping to the experience section, which again, that's the first thing I'll do with the profile. Starting from the bottom, so I see summer internship, summer internship. Let's talk about that. So I see summer internship. I don't know what these companies are. You're not saying anything about that, and it's 3 months and 2 months. So going back to noise, signal to noise ratio, I think this is noise, right? You might as well drop it. I see some people, because it's such a short time and it's not clear to me what you did there. Some people want to beef up their experience and make it look like there's more. So if you want to keep that, keep it, but then show me how does that relate to the data analyst job that you're searching, because otherwise it's just confusing. Okay, project manager, 2.5 years. So this is great. I mean, in terms of length, in terms of content, you're saying all the right things here. The one thing I'll say in your experience is be much more specific. So you say somewhere, managed budgets, identified cost saving opportunities. Okay, how much budget? Is it like $100, $100,000, $100 million? Like, be more specific, put some numbers. I think it will go a very long way. Same thing about where is it? Where you say led cross-functional teams. How big were those teams? Did you lead 5 people, 15 people? I think this is important information that can really, really help you. And I think that's missing for me. Otherwise, it's just words, but lacking the context and the substance. Moving on to the next job. So this is a data analyst job. So I know that you started as a project manager, transition to data analyst. It looks good overall. Again, be more specific. And two very small things, but I think these are the small things that make your profile stand out a little bit more. One is you're not using the same bullets. I don't know why, but it looks weird. And the second thing is you say analyzed, developed, leveraged, and then leverage. So make sure that the tense is consistent. And then look, this is your most important job. This is the last job, and you're not saying anything about it. So here's an opportunity to just say what you're doing right now, because you want to show that you're on a trajectory, upwards trajectory as a data analyst. Cool. I'm moving on to the next profile. We don't have too much time. I'll try to be brief. Subbalakshmi, again, thank you so much for suggesting your profile. Cover photo is missing. This is an opportunity. I love your profile picture. It looks super authentic. Looks like a really nice smile, like happy person, somebody I would want to work with. You're saying engineering manager, data at Ripple. I would personally just say data engineering manager at Ripple. I think this is much clearer. Um, Now, look, the about section, you just say at Ripple, my focus is on designing state of the art data warehousing, yada, yada, yada. You're telling me about your job at Ripple, which you're going to say here. I want to know about you, right? Like, who are you? What do you do? Why should I hire you? So use the about section to tell me about yourself, like an enthusiast, data leader, 15 plus years of experience, excited about building data warehouses that help businesses gain insights, whatever. Just tell me something about yourself. Experience section looks good. I see that you started as a BI data warehouse developer in Chennai, moved as a BI engineer to the US, continued in the Bay Area, data engineer, manager, BI infrastructure, and then analytics engineering. So I see some sort of career trajectory. By the way, you're saying you're a manager, but this is saying analytics engineering. So it's not clear to me if you're a manager of analytics engineering or just analytics engineer. So there's some inconsistency here to clarify. Um, these sections are a little bit too much for me. It's a lot of information. I would say it's a little bit tactical, like writing transact SQL programs for in-house applications, designing data models. Like, I want to elevate that. I want to know basically what did you do and what was the outcome of that. That will help me. So if you can do it in 5-6 bullets and talk more about the work that you did and not the tools that you've used, I think it will go a long way. I love your profile. If you want, you can reach out to me later and we can think together about how to elevate that. And also, you were saying transact SQL programs here and you say it here. So there's a lot of repetition. This is not needed unless this is like the core thing that you do. So try to declutter that a little bit, tighten it up. I think it will really, really help you tell a much better story. Um, and Shreyashi, I think we have less than a minute left. Is that right?
Yeah, but we can wrap up in a few minutes. Shahar, would that help?
We cannot overrun, right?
We can, a little bit. It will not
Okay.
stop. Yeah.
So I will say, if anybody needs to drop before we continue, I'll just say I'll do 2 more profiles. So if you want to stay for 5 more minutes, you can. If you have to drop, let's just connect on LinkedIn, follow me, subscribe on YouTube. Let's connect. Let's continue the conversation. Happy to help. Um, and then I'll just show 2 more profiles really quick, and we'll wrap it up. So the next one is Neha. Again, thank you so much for stepping up and sharing your profile. A couple of things that I notice here. First of all, cover photo and your profile picture. I mean, it's fine. It's a good photo. It's just that you're the subject and you're such a small part of this photo. So maybe close up on the face or something will be better, but it's okay. It's not terrible. Look at your headline. So the first 50 characters would probably go up to here somewhere, and it says serving notice period LWD. I don't know what LWD is, and lead data engineer. So I think bring that to the front because you want people to know you're lead data engineer in analytics at PayPal. That's the first thing, right? Everything else is secondary. I would remove all of that. This is background noise. Like, this is not helping. This is just a shopping list of technology. Basically, the story you want to tell is, I'm a lead data engineer, super experienced data engineer. So tell that story. Don't just throw technology names at me. That's not helping me understand. About section, again, we look at the technical skills. Uh, Same thing. It's a list of technologies. The projects and achievement is good. I like that part, so I'll remove the technical skills. I'll keep the project and achievements. Maybe tell a little bit who you are. You can give a couple of examples of projects that you've worked on. But if you're going to talk about projects, talk about outcomes as well. Don't just say, I built a proof of concept in Data Factory. It's like, okay, but what happened as a result of this proof of concept? What have we achieved? So be much more specific about the outcomes. Certifications and training, there's a section for that in LinkedIn at the bottom, so I wouldn't repeat that here. Again, it's creating a lot of noise in the profile. Um, Looking at your experience, so there's two things I see. First of all, I see data engineer 4 years, almost 5 years, senior data engineer 1.5 years, and then staff engineer, data engineer analytics 3 years. So my impression of your profile is, first of all, you seem to be very experienced and senior data engineer, but at the same time, you're not telling that story. I see the repetition here. So ETL Informatica, Power Center, Cloud Data Platform. This is repetitive, so it's confusing me. And also, you're not telling me what did you do in each one of these jobs. So this is just confusing. And also, if you say you worked at PayPal, I know you were alternate workforce, which is a contractor, but say I was working at PayPal. I think that's much better story to tell, because PayPal is a big brand. Everybody knows what PayPal is. So that's telling a much more compelling story. But this part is missing. Otherwise, solid platform, solid profile, great experience. And the last one will do. Pranav, thank you so much for stepping up and suggesting your profile. I like your profile picture, very colorful, good smile. I really like this cover photo. I mean, it's cheeky, but it's nice. It's lively. There's a lot going on, but it seems young. It seems nice. Um, Looking at your headline, skilled in Snowflake, Python, Java, SQL. This is just throwing a bunch of buzzwords at me. I would start with, I'm a data engineer. That's it. So I would say data engineer, computer science candidate at Boston. Like, these are the two things, get rid of all the rest. Um, about me. So I like your about me section. I mean, if I compare that basically to Muhammad, that it felt a little bit dense in terms of just it's a lot of words. Here it's a little bit more structured. You're even using these emojis, line breaks, so it's much more user friendly, I would say. The about me section here is good. As a data engineer, proven record with data engineering, 3.5 years, excellent roles, expertise in Python, data frameworks. Like, you're telling me basically who you are. That's good. Projects and skills, I love that section. I also think that you're talking about your achievements and you're quantifying them. So I don't know what it means, but if you say achieving 30% reduction in interdependencies, it looks impressive. Okay, because it looks like you've achieved something good, and 30% reduction in something sounds solid. um, the skills part, I would get rid of that, because you have skills here at the bottom. There's no need to repeat that. Don't over index on skills, index on achievements. And by the way, you say projects and skills, and then you say skills again. So this is confusing. I would just say about me, and then I would say achievements, and I would focus on some examples of achievements. That's perfect. Contributing to over 70% of the project development. Like, I like that. It sounds good. Um, you have some services. This is good. Featured section. So this is very clever way of showcasing your endorsements and recommendations. I see that you're you're a little bit more active in LinkedIn, maybe. Let's look at the experience. So there's quite a lot. So we'll start from the bottom. So you started as a software engineer, Python developer. So that was about 1.5 years. Then 8 months as associate software engineer, 8 months as software engineer. So you started your career basically in software engineering. Then you've been data engineering intern for 4 months in Boston. So I see that that was probably an internship during your studies. Data engineering intern in Boston again during your studies. And now you're a full-time data engineer for 4 months. So congratulations to you. What I will say is my summary of your profile is basically software engineer turned data engineering. I would index less on these. Like there's a lot of information here. And if you want to be a software engineer, that's perfectly fine, leave it. But if you want to transition to data engineering, index less on that. So this can be shorter. This can be like, I don't know, one paragraph, maybe up to here. Same thing about here, because basically what you want to show is, yes, I started as a software engineer, but my trajectory is now into data engineering, and then focus on that. Again, I like your structure, bullet points, spacing. It's good. It's much more user friendly. But each one of these is basically like a 4 months gig. So there's a lot of information here for 4 months gig, and then your real actual data engineering job where you're a full-time employee, you're not saying anything. So I think I would basically condense that a little bit, and all the rest of them, and then try to tell the story here to show the trajectory that I started as a software engineer, transitioned to data engineering, finished my degree, and now I'm a data engineer full time, looking for awesome data engineering jobs. And I would say the same thing here in the about section. So basically, software engineer transition, data engineering. This is very clear. It shows who you are. Um, Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today, for joining this session. I really appreciate you all. I hope this was useful and you've learned something from it. Feel free to connect, to continue the conversation. Connect on LinkedIn, subscribe on YouTube. I haven't had a chance to look at the questions and the comments, but I will have a look, and if there's anything interesting here, I might I might just post about it on LinkedIn or something. That's it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And thank you, Shriyashi, for your help with this session, and Ben and Shinran for setting it up. Amazing summit. Enjoy.